Good evening. Welcome to the Steel City Huddle podcast. I'm LeeAnn Lohman, joined as always by my partner, Zac Franciscus. Zac, how are you doing?
I'm just amazed every single time that there's a week in between our podcasts, something insane happens.
We always say, like, I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, and then crazy shit goes down. So we talked about how Tomlin stepped down, right? Walked, after 19 seasons, walked away. And then the Steelers hired Mike McCarthy. And I think, we talked about this a lot. Like, I don't know. I felt like he were giving him a courtesy interview, and then next thing because he was from Pittsburgh, and then next thing you know, you got like Kabali and some of the other local guys talking about how he's like the top candidate. They think he's going to get the job. I'm like, this can't be real. Then you saw like Diana Rossini tweeted it out, and I had somebody in my family go, "Oh, she's notoriously unreliable. Don't worry, that's not going to be true." And then right behind it, Schefter tweets it, and you're like, "Oh shit, here we are." So I think initially everybody in Steeler Nation, many people, I shouldn't say everybody, like outrage, right? So anybody but Tomlin group was like, oh shit, we didn't mean him. And people were upset. And then he gave this press conference yesterday where he sat down and immediately started crying. And then all of Pittsburgh was like, whoa, we love you. Have a Perani Brothers sub, and it's okay. And it was nice, it was heartfelt, right? If you have a heart, then you watch that, and you saw his whole family there. I mean, he had like 25 people with him. It was crazy. I was like, that's got to be like your fifth cousin. Like, how did he get to come? So we had all these people there, they mom, and they're so cute and they're so excited. So I think a lot of people saw that and softened up their stance, and were like, maybe this is our guy, right? He's so passionate, he wants it so bad. Zac, did that all of that was a long way to ask you if that press conference made you more of a Mike McCarthy fan or not?
Well, about 3 seconds, I was like, "That's nice." I'm like, "That's good," but then I'm like, "That's not going to win us games." We have had
Right.
someone who's known how to speak to the media for a while. Mike McCarthy should know how to speak to the media. Of course, he's going to get emotional if you're from Pittsburgh.
Sure.
But there was some positives that I took away, but mostly it was a lot of emotion, and more people swayed than I thought. Like, I
Mhm.
went back online afterwards, and
A
especially over the
lot.
next few days, and people are like, I'm on the McCarthy train. I'm like, that's all he had to do?
Right.
Wow.
Like Mike Tomlin couldn't win those people over for years and years. And I mean, he got on there and shed one crocodile tear, and all of a sudden, he's got like a whole fan base. And look, I think it's a great story. And I'll say this: I said it to people online. I railed and screamed and yelled last year about bringing Aaron Rodgers on board. I wasn't happy about it for a variety of reasons, but primarily because I was pretty sure he'd be injured by like week 6 and out for the rest of the season. And I was concerned that he was going to bring all this drama to the team. Well, neither of those things happened, right? And he was actually not terrible. I mean, he wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible. I think he was a much more, we talked about it week after week, for the most part, kind of a veteran presence on that offense that we had been missing. So I have no problem admitting I was wrong. So I certainly hope that, Mike McCarthy gets his season well underway. We see something very different, from him than we've seen in the past, in a good way, and that, this team gels together and kind of, handles this transition really well. Did you make much of the fact that there were not very many current players at the press conference? I saw Alex Highsmith there shaking his hand, and I can't remember who else was there, like a couple other players. And I didn't really think much of it because I thought, well, it's off season, right? Like a lot of guys are traveling, they're back home, like wherever they live, their home base is in Pittsburgh. Do you know what I mean? Like they have a family home somewhere else. Like a lot of them
I
aren't there. So I wasn't totally surprised, but other people seem to think that was a big deal.
Yeah, I saw. I'm hoping I'm gonna get it's Braden Fajeco on
Yeah.
Facebook. The ex Steeler posted that, and I didn't want to knee jerk anything, so I went into detective mode. I read articles written on the day Mike Tomlin was hired. I looked at pictures from when he was hired, videos. Nowhere can I find any current or ex-Steelers at that thing, and no one said a word. So I went
I
back to
don't
Coward.
remember that that's a
And
thing, but we've had so few head coaches that, it's not like we're the Browns and we're doing this every 3 years.
but you have to take reality into it. These guys have families. This is a job, and there's a massive, awful, shut down city snowstorm going on.
That too.
So
That's true.
I'm reporters that came to the Pittsburgh for the press conference got snowed in and were unable
Yeah.
to get to the next place they had to go.
Yeah.
So no,
They had
I
a foot
think
of snow
nothing.
yesterday. A foot of snow. They were traveling in to do this press conference in these crazy conditions. So you're right. That's another really valid factor. I hadn't even thought of that. I just thought that, like, I don't know how, like, I don't care enough to ask people on Twitter about it, but I thought to myself, if you're comparing like what's happening right now with the Steelers, like with what you've seen other teams do, that's not really fair, because maybe that's a team precedent for like the Browns or the Falcons or some team that hires more coaches where their current players all show up or something. Maybe that's like a team thing, but I have never noticed anytime a new head coach press conference happens with any team where like all the players are sitting there in the, do you know what I mean? Like it's really for the media and stuff. I was actually surprised he had so much family there, because I thought this is a press conference for him to talk to the media. It's not a huge space, this space you're in. So I was surprised to see like so many non-media people there outside of the Steelers organization. So yeah, I certainly didn't expect all the players to be there.
Yeah, and I Mark Caboli on Twitter was playing down the amount of family members. I saw him post that, oh, this is normal, and I was like, I've never heard of it, but I don't know. They never released the details
Yeah.
of this, and because it doesn't happen to us every 2 decades we get a new coach. I don't know
Right.
what other teams do. You're right,
But you
but
show up with your
this I
spouse and your kids or something, like not like your
yeah.
great nephews and nieces. And I mean, look, whatever. I thought it was odd.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think because I the closest thing I have to a hometown is Thailand, so I'm trying to think. I'm like, okay, let's say that I got a similar job in Thailand. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I would want as many people in that as I'm like, if he has a lot of family that happen to be in that area, and that's where I got to the logical jump about the other Steeler players. I'm like, I'm wondering, out of
Yeah.
the ones that were there, how many live in Pittsburgh? How
Yeah.
many had things that were already keeping them in Pittsburgh? Just I guarantee more of it was just coincidence, like, hey, we're going to be in town. Let's
Right.
stop by rather than let's make a statement by backing this.
Right. 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 And then you have that opportunity and it makes sense, right? Or maybe you're like some of the players live not far from where the stadium is, like if you live in the city itself, right? So maybe that makes it easier to get over to the facility versus somebody who's going to drive in, like Ben Roethlisberger lives out in the outskirts in the country, right? So that, I mean, so maybe there's some factor of that too. I agree. I think it was interesting. So did you hear anything in his press conference, anything that was said by him that kind of surprised you? Did you think it was like the standard, party line stuff that every new coach, I mean, every new coach says, like, when the greatest team in the one of the most storied franchises want to win a Super Bowl, right? Right, develop, have a great offense and a good defense. I mean, they all say the kind of the same thing.
Say I ignored all of that, and I'm glad people enjoyed it, and they can go back and watch it and all that. And I don't know if it's because I am a Steeler fan that was raised outside of Pittsburgh that there's a different kind of connection to the team than me. It's not to the city;
Yeah.
it's to the team. But I really enjoyed hearing. Mike Tomlin didn't talk a lot of X's and O's. He didn't talk a lot of this guy against this guy, and third. And Mike McCarthy seemed to go out of his way to explain, well, we're going to do this and you have to do this. And I really like they talked about watching trends in the offseason. That he said the last time that for anyone who didn't watch the press conference, he said the last time he was off away from coaching, I think 2019. He really was off from coaching. He did not do a lot of watching the NFL. He talked to his coach friends and stuff. But this time he said he was watching the trends in the NFL. And he said a lot of things were based in the fourth quarter, and so he watched a lot of fourth quarter stuff, and that's honestly the best way for him to win me over. I needed to hear concrete plans. It's kind of like when you're listening to when election night comes around, 90% of stuff, like you're just saying words. I'm not hearing any plans right now. It's the same with a lot of stuff we've heard before. I appreciate that I heard some concrete stuff where I'm like, okay, you recognize weaknesses that we've had. You're in front of people. You're saying, I recognize that things here have not been done the way they should have in certain ways. And I also appreciated that he is an offensive coach and he will be calling plays. And he said something interesting. He said in his entire career, he's only had one top 10 defense, and he won the Super Bowl that year. And maybe we need a little bit of opposite in Pittsburgh. If he's going to let the defense do its stuff, I don't mind scoring a couple extra points. I really don't. And he likes scoring.
I don't want to turn into the Bengals. Do you know what I mean? Where we let our defense just fall apart, and we've got like a good quarterback and a couple good wide receivers and nothing else. So I don't want to turn into the Bengals, right? But I definitely would like to see our team feel just a little bit more balanced. And I do, like you, I kind of hope with it, like we're really doing something different. Do you know what I mean? And then maybe that's going to actually happen for us, where it'll be something, a little bit more balanced for us. Because I think at first when I found out that we hired him, when I found out he was even like on like the serious consideration list for interviews, I was shocked because it never occurred to me that we wouldn't just hire another defensive coach. Like that's always what we've done. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin, all defensive coordinators, right, before becoming head coaches. And it never occurred to me that we would do that. So to me, in my head, the winning formula seemed like young, innovative, defensive-minded coach, right? And like a Chris Shula type. Doesn't have to be him. And then you find this innovative, young, offensive guy to bring in to run this more creative, today worthy offense, and kind of go from there. And so, I just never occurred to me that we would do something different than that. And then, I saw, you remember when they put out the list, they had that one guy on there. I forget which team it was, but he was like somebody's pass game coordinator or something for offense.
Yes.
And maybe the Rams, I can't remember. And then McCarthy, and those were like the two offensive guys. So then I started thinking, well, I wonder if like McCarthy has really just been the plan all along. I mean, they didn't bother. They had interviews scheduled with Shula and those other guys, and they canceled them. They didn't even, nobody was beating down the door for Mike McCarthy. It was not like every other team was like, Mike McCarthy's on our list. So-and-so is interviewing Mike McCarthy. Like, to me, it feels like we could have waited till March and he would have still been there. And yet we canceled all these other interviews to rush to hire him. Like we had to snatch him up when there was nobody else interested in him. That kind of made me think maybe he was the only person they ever really wanted and anything else was a smokescreen.
I have seen quite a few different places in Twitter, and I kind of agree with it, or X or whatever it's called, that this may have been more on Rooney not really knowing how to handle the situation that he was thrown into. Because a lot of people said he was ready to run it back with Tomlin. He was going into that meeting. He's like, okay, 2026, let's talk about it. And when Tomlin left, he was blindsided.
Yeah.
A lot. And when someone like, I don't know him personally, but from the decisions that were made, I think a lot of panic happened. And he was like, wait a second, I just need to right this ship. And he just said, find the closest thing to stability. And because he panicked, he didn't give himself the chance to think through this decision.
So do you think that opened the door for this old connection, between McCarthy and Khan and Weidel, that everybody talks about this connection they had, right? And that, all along they've wanted to get this group back together. So do you think that because Tomlin kind of caught them off guard, if that's true, then it kind of opened the door for Weidel and Khan to say, oh, funny you should say that. Mike McCarthy happens to be free right now, and
I think comfortability. Honestly, I don't know if it's going to be a good or bad thing. It had a lot to do with it. I think Rooney's like, I know what I'm comfortable with. I know what kind of coach I'm with, the kind of stability. I just want to go from one to the other, and then I'll just sit back and figure it out later, which is kind of how it seems to be run there. I'm going to do this, and then we'll figure the rest out later.
Yeah.
Hey, look, wide receiver, this. So that I'll say this: if this was a panic thing, there's worse situations we could be in than having Mike McCarthy as the head coach. I will absolutely admit that, but I was prepared for the discomfort. I was prepared for an uncomfortable. Yeah, I was. Yeah, anybody. I was prepared for the rockiness of bringing in someone inexperienced that wanted to build something new, and he's 62. We're not going to, this is not going to be another Cowher or Tomlin. He's not going to be here till he's 80 something.
No, I don't think this is 10 years. I mean, yeah. So Vicky asked, Mom asked, do you think there was a mutual agreement with the Rooneys that it was time for Tomlin to step down, or do you really think it was a blindside?
At least from everything I heard, they went into it and Rooney believed it was just going to be a let's move to the future, but Tomlin came in with a different approach to it. At least that's what I heard. And then from there it went to talk to the players. So from that point, it seemed like there was two very, very different perspectives, and Rooney handled it with as much grace as can be expected in the moment, but the decision afterwards showed a little panic.
See, where I struggle a little bit with that is then, like, who knows what's really true, right? None of us are behind the scenes or on the inside or whatever. But then you hear people say that Tomlin knew all season he wasn't going to return, right? Like, I mean, you heard people saying that he knew it coming into the 2025 season that he wasn't going to come back in 2026. And I just find it hard to believe that Tomlin would have like strung Rooney along all year, pretending like you're returning if you're not, right? So to me, like something there had to not be true. Either I don't believe Tomlin knew all year he wasn't going to come back. I don't believe that. I believe more that he kind of decided after they lost that playoff game, like enough, you know what I mean? And maybe he even thought, well, if we lose, I won't come back. You know, I don't know, but, and maybe that pushed him to rush a little bit, but it did feel rushed.
It did. I think a lot of it, there had to be so much personal disappointment, I feel, with Tomlin, because more than any other year since he got here, he got everything he asked for this year. Yeah. Everything. He got his mythical quarterback who's always wanted. He kept one of the highest paying defenses of the year, brought TJ back at camp, and it didn't work. Same thing again. And it wasn't even that. I mean, if we would have won a playoff game, maybe not got to the playoffs, or something would have been different. But it was the same thing again. And maybe there was just a numbness. I've never been in a situation where I've been in the same job for as long as he has, let alone in the same job with this kind of pressure he has. So I don't know. Did seem a lot of things seem rushed, and I'm not sure if I'm liking that.
And I don't know, like, and then I feel like it's hard to tell, right? Like I always try to think all the way around it. And then I think maybe this isn't rushed. Like maybe this is just how it is. And it feels rushed to us because it was so surprising in so many ways. I don't know. I think it's, I think it's interesting. Vicky says it did feel rushed. And I think you're right, LeeAnn. I think he thought if I lose this playoff game, that's it. And that's the only thing I can think, because it almost, his leaving almost felt to me like, when things don't go your way and you're like, fuck it, I'm just done. Do you know what I mean? I'm just walking away. Like it almost felt like that to me. Not like a temper tantrum, because I don't think he's that like emotional in that way, emotionally responsive, reactionary. But I do think that, in his head, he must have been like, if I can't win like this, then I need to walk away. Like the fans hate me, they're chanting fire Tomlin at games. Like this is an unnecessary distraction. And to hear people say that like, oh, well, McCarthy has all this passion and he loves this team in this city. Well, I believe Tomlin did too, right? Like just because somebody didn't win a Super Bowl every year, I don't think that takes away from the fact that he was passionate. I think he was incredibly passionate. I think sometimes almost to his own detriment.
I very much agreed. Now, I like that you brought up Rodgers earlier. It's very similar to Rodgers like last year. There's nothing I can do about it. The Steelers aren't calling me up to ask how I feel about this situation. So I know I'm going to watch the Steelers next year.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to cheer for them to win. So I just need to take a step back, realize that Mike McCarthy is the head coach of the Steelers, regardless of how much it seems just surreal and weird.
Right.
But I'm like, okay, this is what's happening. Just build it better than we had it before. That's all I can ask. And I know we'll get into it throughout the rest of the show, but That's where the positivity for me comes in. Not with the hiring of McCarthy, it's the steps after.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about some of these coaching changes that are coming. So or not coming, as the case may be.
Yeah.
So we heard already that Dunbar was going to leave. I think that's really interesting. I'll be curious to see how that plays into whether Cam Hayward returns or not. He's only played for 2 line coaches since he's been with Pittsburgh, and Dunbar a really long time. So then we heard from Dulac this afternoon that McCarthy is expected to bring back 3 members of Tomlin's staff. I thought this was interesting. Scott McCurley, who was the linebackers coach, quarterback coach Tom Arth, and secondary coach Gerald Alexander. I thought that was very interesting. Dulac also said that Mike McCarthy is close to bringing in Patrick Graham as his defensive coordinator. Graham is 47, was defensive coordinator the past 3 seasons with the Raiders. He also served in that same role with the Dolphins and the Giants. And I thought to myself, well, that is not exactly a ringing endorsement because the Raiders defense was for shit. So why on earth would you want that guy? But you and I talked about this a little bit, and you had some kind of interesting, you did some research and had some insight into that was helped me calm down a little bit.
Well, on the face of it, yeah, it's just simply saying, well, he was the Raiders defensive coordinator. It's not impressive. But there's a big difference in how the Raiders do business and the Steelers do business. Raiders do not spend on defense. Raiders were, I think, the 2nd or 3rd least expensive defense last year. And we were the 2nd most expensive defense. And despite that, they actually did better than us in yards per game. They had a better passing defense, and they had pretty much a similar rushing defense. And for people who understand, we had the 2nd highest paid defense. Were the 26th ranked defense when it came to yards per game, and the 29th ranked passing defense in the league. So what is going to happen is we're bringing someone in who did a lot with not a lot of pieces, because Max Crosby was dealing with injuries there, had a lot of injuries while he was there, so he didn't have his major pieces on there, and he was still performing better. So I'm confident in that, and this is going to be a something that is a lot of the hires I'm seeing experience.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin never hired people with prior experience. He hired people that he felt would work for him in the system, and that's great. And, all that. This guy has been defensive coordinators in other places. The guy we are bringing in, we'll talk about for our wide receivers. He's been coaches other places. The people, our special teams guy that we're going to hire later, he's been a special teams coordinator other places. We're bringing people, not just that Mike McCarthy knows or he's friends with or all that. Not that Tomlin did that. I want to make sure I'm pointing that out. But we're going directions that we haven't gone before. And when I knew that we were going to be building a new coaching staff, I wanted to see something like this. I wanted to see a coach start to bring in experience and people that were smarter than him. He alluded to that in the coaching, in the press conference, that you want to surround yourself with people that are better than you with things. And he mentioned bringing in the young, hungry guys that can do the things differently than he can. Hearing that was the only time I will use this word. That was refreshing, because that's the only time I felt any sort of refreshment. I'm like, there we go. I need different. I need someone looking at me saying, I don't know all the answers, but I'm going to bring in a group of people, and together we will find the answers. That's what I want. So I'm happy for that start. That's the only thing that got me psyched up, was the process of this.
But you really have to be that, like, in today's NFL. And it was the thing I was excited about. Like, if look, we're going to lose Tomlin, he's going to walk away, and we're going to get a new coach, and it's going to be Mike McCarthy. I need to get myself excited. The thing I'm most excited about is the amount of change, right? Like, the one thing I was happy about was that this, like, McCarthy tsunami kind of wipes out all the coaching staff that were there, because I think we all agreed we had some pretty significant issues with most of the coordinators, and assistant coaches that were there. And so to me, I think this really will give us a chance to kind of hit the reset button and try to really figure out where some of those problems lie. You know what I mean? Where there's a lot of, was it Tomlin? Was it Omar Khan? Was it Rooney? Was it the coach? You know what I mean? And maybe this will help kind of shed some light on that. Maybe having guys that are more experienced will lend itself to being more trusting of what they're doing. I think you're right. Tomlin hired those inexperienced guys, and then he didn't trust them. He kept them on a short leash. And then you're trying to micromanage them and trying to micromanage this and trying to be the head coach. And I think that is where it wound up looking to fans like he had his fingers in, too many different pots.
Absolutely agreed. And I'm going to paraphrase here because I don't have the quote in front of me, but Patrick Adams, a little while ago, he was asked what the Patrick Adams playbook was like.
Mhm.
And he said, there's not really a Patrick Adams playbook. He's like, what I do is I look at where I've been and take bits of that, and then I look at the pieces I have in front of me and I build based on that. And I just
like that.
Stop for a second. I'm like, what a great answer. What a great answer for what we need right now. And when you mentioned the coaches that were being kept, it's interesting. I think that's kind of for at least two of them, it's the players helping out the coach and the coach helping out the player, because you got to think that the play of Alex Highsmith when he was on the field and Nick Herbig and all those linebackers definitely helped that linebacker coach stay. And JPJ having a breakout year definitely helped. And with all the moving pieces in the secondary and moving Ramsey and all what we had to do, I mean, good for them for saying, you did amazing at what you did last year. I understand we don't know each other. We're gonna have to build that reputation together.
Yeah.
But we're gonna work from. But the quarterbacks one makes me nervous. I'm gonna be honest. I don't want Rodgers back, and it has nothing to do with how with him or all that. I appreciate what he did, and he really surprised me. I'm already having to say, let's have McCarthy prove me wrong. I don't want to go in and have an older Rodgers there. Because I need someone who's going to be able to grow with this offensive line, whether it's Will Howard or someone else. A young quarterback growing with a young offensive line, to me, is very important. I really place a lot of value on that. So if it happens, it happens. I'll breathe through it. But my goodness gracious, I want to start this young quarterback thing as soon as we can.
I'm having a hard time with it because there's a part of me that very much feels like, look, even if we decided our answer was to start Will Howard or to start him halfway through the season or whatever it is, would it not benefit him to have an Aaron Rodgers there? Like if Aaron is really invested in Will Howard, like he said he was, right? Because he said that. So if he was really, believes in him and is invested in him, then maybe there would be some benefit to having Rodgers return to work with this young guy, right? I don't know. Maybe if there's some other young guy that comes along, certainly I hope not out of the draft this year. I don't want any of those guys. But, whatever that looks like, that you have somebody that's somewhat familiar with the organization, that knows Tom Arth, that can help this young quarterback kind of get his footing and established, then that makes a lot of sense to me. What I'm not totally sold on is that Aaron Rodgers' ego allows him to step aside in that way and allow the new guy to step on his shoulder on the way up the ladder. I think that's easy to say, and that's very hard to do in practice. Do you know what I mean? Because how do you sit back on the bench and watch somebody lose a game when you think you could be doing a better job or something like that?
That's true. And Mike McCarthy actually referenced the quarterback room specifically, and that's another thing that I liked, and I'm glad you brought that up. He was talking about that you don't just build it off the superstar quarterback and his backups. He's like, you build a quarterback room. And I haven't heard that before. I mean, think about it. The closest thing we've had to anything like that is the sham quarterback competitions that we've had ever since, the Ben thing. So I don't know what that's like, actually having a cooperative group in a quarterback room. And if Aaron Rodgers is willing to go when he needs to go, and if we're halfway the season, it's like, listen, we're not going where we thought we were going to go. It's time for him. And you're right. I really can't see Rodgers coming back, having to go through everything that an NFL player has to do to get himself ready for the season, for the chance that he's not going to have the ride into the sunset and his last season is going to be spent on a bench. I cannot imagine him coming back.
I gotta agree with you. I just don't see it. I mean, do I think it's a possibility that all that gets said so he returns? Yes. Do I think it's very realistic that it plays out that way? I just don't. I just don't see that happening. Now, I also feel though like it's really hard to say like I do or don't want Rodgers when I don't know who else is going to be there, right? Like so if you're leaving me with just Will Howard and Mason Rudolph, then yes, please, I'd like Rodgers back. I mean, we need somebody, and I mean, it's not Mason. It's just not Mason. I'm sorry. I love the kid. He's a nice guy. He's just not that guy.
No, he had his chance again. And we didn't need him as a starter.
Chances. I mean, he's had like 14 chances. Like it and I'm so tired of hearing the fans that are like, I think this might be Mason's year. It's like, dude, it has not been Mason's year. He's been with us for 10 years or something now. Like, come on. And he played for like broken down Bend, so he got chances to start all the time, played whole chunks of seasons. You know what I mean? Then he stepped in for Pickett. I mean, you're just not able to close the deal when you need to, you know.
Agreed. So I do not mind that because I am slowly preparing myself for player turnover, especially in situations I don't want or agree or like it.
Yeah.
And this is going to be one of those situations. So
yeah, I want to talk about player turnover, but before we do, I wanted to pull this up. He says the attitude, you know, that I don't know all the answers that you just talked about with McCarthy is very different than Tomlin, who I thought always had the attitude. I do have all the answers, and I just need to find people who go along with me. I think that is really true. I think that that's going to be an interesting adjustment this year. Do you know what I mean? Because look, just because somebody says I don't have all the answers and I defer to people, I know how to play that game. I did it with my staff when I was a principal all the time, where I would give other people credit for the stuff I did because it built my team up or whatever. Or I said like, oh, we're doing this as a team, but really we're not. I'm running this. So I think that there's a different, like they're just a different way of presenting their leadership style, right? And I think that that's going to be, you know, not to use the word refreshing, but like you said, but maybe just a nice change of pace. Because I did think that if we hired Brian Flores for that head coaching job, his personality and his affect, you know, and his very kind of not very verbose, you know what I mean? He didn't say a lot like Tomlin. Like I wondered, was he going to be like too much like Tomlin? Like if we got somebody like him that really just didn't, you know, said what they had to say and not a whole lot else. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, on the show, I've praised Tomlin for what he does in press conferences quite a bit. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but maybe the fans really needed somebody who was like different in demeanor to help ease this transition.
It did really help. I mean, I don't even think people who are in the organization day to day are prepared for how big the change is going to be. It's not just the coach. Tomlin was so the power he had in that entire organization. There's a vacuum there right now, and I'm hoping within that organization it's being dealt with correctly, because there could be nasty scrambles when that happens, and I don't want nastiness behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So because the more I think about what losing Tomlin means, I just keep thinking, wow, it means this is impacting this. So
yeah. I spent a good chunk of time yesterday pretty sad over my future press conferences and how not fun they're going to be. They're not. I'm going to miss it. Like I'm going to miss the way he does things. Maybe the media won't miss it. I'll miss it. The other person that the Steelers kind of announced that they're finalizing the hiring is Adam Henry as their new receivers coach. He's been a receivers coach for a long time. It's not new to him. And he spent the past 3 years with the Bills. So what did you think about that hire? Out with Zach Aronzani, or however you pronounce his last name, and in with whatever I said this guy's name is.
Yeah.
Already forgot.
Adam
Henry.
Adam Henry. Yeah.
I'll get there, Adam Henry. I promise. Yep. No offense. Takes me
Everyone's
time.
new. We'll figure it out. We'll figure this all out. It's the same reason I loved the Patrick Adams hire. Experience matters to me. If you're coming in and you're new, I'm gonna want to know that you've done the job. But also, he's worked with some impressive people. He worked with Odell Beckham Jr. at LSU before he got here. And if anyone has watched the Bills, the number one thing the Bills know how to do is use their wide receivers. Especially watching the Bills beat us a couple of times, I'm like, goodness, they know how to use every depth piece all the way down. So I'm really enjoying that, because there's that it probably more than any other place on the roster, that wide receiver room is going to be just excavated, and the guy coming in is going to want to rebuild it from DK Metcalf outward. No, I love Calvin Austin, but no one else other than DK is safe in that room right now.
Nor should they be. I mean, nor should they be, right? Because we have to, if we really want this to happen, we have to really say, like, gone are the days of warehousing Roman Wilson and pretending we can't see him standing in the corner, you know what I mean? And not using him and not explaining that, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that, I mean, this is really going to have to be a change. And I feel like it's, other than the head coach, I feel like that position, and for whatever reason, the wide receiver coach doesn't take the beating that like other coaches do. But I think McCarthy and that wide receivers coach, because he's going to call so much of the offense, are really going to be under scrutiny this year to see, like, that's going to be the litmus test for Steelers fans with this new offensive coach. Is not going to be, do you run the ball or how do you run the ball? It's going to be, are we doing jet sweeps or do you have something new up your sleeve?
Oh yeah, and trust me, the microscopes are out. I am ready to watch many steps throughout this process because we are tired of how the wide receiver room has been dealt with. It's like they tried to appease us by getting DK Metcalf, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna do everything else the same though." Yeah. So let's do it different coming into this time. So new coach, do that, and we got free agency, we got the draft coming up, we got plenty of opportunity to make this. We don't need a superstar group. We're gonna have a lot of the defense that we have. So just like I said, just 7 to 10 points a game more.
Let's do something innovative. I was wondering where Relic is, and here he is, and he likes my shirt. I can't even see the bottom of it. The bottom says, "Nazi punks, fuck off." Yeah.
If anybody was wondering where we're,
day to day. So let's real quick before we go over to the other thing I want to talk about. Relic brings up the Browns are hiring a young up-and-comer, Shielhaas or Udinsky. They're going to be so fucking good. Oh, and they hired Todd Monken. Yeah, what the hell? And then, like, you heard the news that Shielhaas and Udinsky or Shula are now going to stay where they are. They're not. So I don't know. Like, did Chris Shula really bomb the interview? I saw that nonsense tweet float about. I can't remember who put that out, that he bombed his interview with the Steelers. Find that hard to believe. And then to see them hire Monken, I mean, that was shocking. And then did you hear that their defensive coordinator, what's his name, like Jim Schwartz, was like, "Fuck this, I'm leaving. Fuck all of you." He's like, "I'm not even cleaning out my locker." Yeah, here, Riley just said it. Did you hear the Browns? He said, "Fuck you" to the Browns. Yeah, he told everybody, like, he walked around that organization when they announced the hire and like shook hands and said goodbye to people. I was like, holy shit, like that's a serious stand.
Between that and the Browns getting to celebrate Shedeur Sanders being a Pro Bowl quarterback.
How crazy is that? So how did these two things happen? Look, I understand Bill Belichick cheated, right? I am never going to minimize that because he cheated against us and I hate that motherfucker. But how is he not a first ballot Hall of Famer? And then how is Shedeur Sanders a Pro Bowler? Who is that idiot that's voting? Who is
it? Well, the Pro Bowl, I every year I see the same thing. It's the people who are on like, "Oh, the Pro Bowl's not even a game anymore." I'm like, yeah, it hasn't been a game for a long. I remember the Pro Bowl games when people had it was fun, trip to Hawaii.
It used to be so fun. Somebody put the picture up today. It was so cute. It was like baby Ryan Clark and baby Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown and somebody else all in Hawaii with their leis on, and it was so cute. Yeah. I don't know. That is wild times in Cleveland, and the Browns keep browning. I mean, I don't even know like what else you can say about them. They're so ridiculous. I mean, I was mad. I'm like, they're going to get Chris Shula. They're going to get, that Shielhaas or somebody that I wanted in Pittsburgh. And then Todd Monken. Like, really?
So right now, I think even though we're not as pleased as we wanted to be with our, head coaching hire,
yeah,
I think we win the stability contest in the AFC North right now because you have the Browns and Ravens who are just full on rebuild mode. But Zach Taylor is I'm amazed he's still there. I think we would. So that any one up for us to keep winning our division is a positive with me. But goodness, what a way to brown for the Browns to brown.
You know what else I was thinking about was that I was thinking that going forward, what's that guy's name the Ravens hired? I forget his name. The guy
Jesse
the Ravens
Minter?
hired. Huh? Yes, Minter.
Jesse
Minter, and then whoever the Steelers hire, right? So at that time, I'm thinking it's going to be like Schuler, one of these other young guys. I'm thinking they're going to be like lockstep for their whole career in the AFC North. They're always going to be compared to each other, right? They started the same season, they both lost out, right? Like all of these similarities between the two teams. So like these two guys are going to always be like on this train track together, headed in the same direction. And what a brilliant way for the Steelers to like totally remove that. Hopefully it works out in our favor, because you really can't compare a Jesse Minter to a Mike McCarthy, right? Like McCarthy's already won a Super Bowl. He's much older. He's been in the league forever. This isn't his first head coaching job. Like all of a sudden you can't do that every time the Steelers and Ravens play, where we're going to be like, oh, these two young new head coaches are going head to head,
I'm hoping that puts some added unnecessary pressure on both the Ravens and the Browns, where they'll be like, listen, you come into this where you have to beat the Steelers, and it's not a bunch of young guys scrapping around. It's okay, we have to beat Mike McCarthy the first time. So right. I'm hoping they feel added pressure on that.
Yeah. Relic asked if we heard that the Browns are asking their candidates to do homework or personality tests and essay. I did hear some of that, and I assume the personality test was to make sure they don't have any before they hire them in Pittsburgh, because that seems to be like a prerequisite for their coaches, because they're always boring.
And I know a big part of it was apparent, and I don't know how much is true about all of it. Apparently, everyone they brought in, they were like, listen, you come in, you got to keep Jim Schwartz as defensive coordinator. And they were like, no, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, you got to keep it. And it turns out they just screwed him over. Like, fine. Jim Schwartz is out. And then they get a head coach right away. What did that say about Schwartz, man?
I don't know. It's, and I thought what's crazy to me too is that the Browns had a really, really good defense. Like you certainly can't complain about the job Jim Schwartz did, right? Like their defense was excellent. And it wasn't just Myles Garrett. Like he did a good job with that defense. If they'd had half of an offense, they could have been a really dangerous team last year. If they hadn't had 17 quarterbacks and no wide receivers, maybe they could have done something. So yeah, that was kind of crazy to me. That whole thing was weird. They told him that they might hire him, but then they didn't. I mean, I would leave too. That would have been enough for me. Yeah, how many coaches canceled? That was like every other tweet was like somebody's backed out. Somebody said no thanks. Yeah, that does speak volumes.
And it can't just be players, because you look there and there's potential there and there's intrigue. It has to be how the organization's run. It has to be that I'm not going into this dumpster fire, being thrown into the bus, or there's no stability here.
Monken said, like, what a cesspool. Wasn't that, it was him. He said years ago, like, what a cesspool here was for Monken and the Browns, because he was with them before. Monken would spend time on the field before games telling opposing coaches how bad things were with the Browns, calling the team, quote, a total mess. I mean, that's from when he was with the Browns before. And then now you're going to hire that guy as your head coach? That's crazy to me.
Wow. It's in just 1 year. What a turnover.
Did you laugh out loud, or did you scratch your chin and think, when Stephen A. Smith said that the Steelers should have given Ryan Clark the head coaching job?
I guess he didn't get his quota for clicks this week or something, because I mean, did he have to? We won't name the places that we've worked together, but it seems like something where there's no stories left and you're just throwing something out like, oh, we need extra clicks. Someone write this. And that's what I felt like.
Shocked. Like, first of all, never heard RC ever one time, and he says everything that he's got any interest in going into coaching, right? He's obviously into being an analyst, broadcasting, like this is what he wants to do, right? The media side, he's made that abundantly clear. He's got a popular podcast. He's on ESPN. Like he doesn't want to do that. Then he has no experience, right? Like, so even if I was just floored, I was like, even if you hate all of Ryan Clark's opinions or you love them or you hate them or whatever, no matter what you think of him as an analyst, there's no way it makes any sense for him to be a head coach. Like, he's never even coached.
Exactly. When I hear that, or like when I hear an announcer go out of his way to say something about a player, I'm like, oh, you really want to be invited to their house for Christmas this year, don't you?
Right.
Wow, you are really sucking up. And so Stephen A. Smith must really want Ryan Clark on his show or something, because what an asinine thing to say.
Maybe he's been trying to get on the pivot. Yeah, Relic says, there's just no job security with the Browns. And I have to say, like, if I was a head coaching candidate, that's tough, right? Because, look, I know when I interviewed to get a principal job, there's like a billion candidates and there's only like so many positions available, right? And so you can say, like, I only want to work in this area, or I only want to be here. I don't want to drive all the way over there. I don't want to do elementary school. And then all of a sudden, when you realize there's like a bazillion of you and only 32 schools or something, and you have to just take whatever you can get. So I get, like, you can't really afford to turn down a head coaching job if it gets offered to you, right? Like, that's the dream. That's the goal. But by that same token, does it make you look bad that you go to the Browns and they screw you and then you suck, and then that's on your permanent record? You're the coach that failed when it's a failure of an organization?
I can see. And I think when people are convincing themselves into taking the job, I think the sliver of hope on the other side of that, like, well, yeah, it could fail and I could be the Browns guy. But I could be the one who turns it around.
The ego, like, I can be the guy who turns this around. The ego, right? Yeah. You got to have some ego to be a head coach.
There's been a few times in Madden when I've decided, I'm like, I'm going to pick the team that hasn't won anything ever, and I'm going to feel good when I get them to that Super Bowl. But that's Madden. This is real life, man. It's the best way I've ever heard the Browns defined has never been wrong, and it's they're a factory of sadness. And a Browns fan called them that. So
yeah, you can't even argue.
Thank goodness they're in our division.
Yeah. All right. Well, Relic queued up my next topic for me. He says, who do you think is on the trade block with McCarthy as coach? Or who do you think wants out? I'm worried TJ, Cam, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith. I mean, roll out the Santa Claus list. Does anybody want to stay? He said either because Mike T or it's out, or because McCarthy is going to try to get offensive weapons. I think it'll be really interesting. Nick Herbig's name is the one that I saw so much the past 2 days about, like, trade fodder, and that makes me very nauseous. What do you think's going to happen? This is kind of the scary, like, I hadn't really given that much consideration to this part of it. And then once Tomlin was gone, I started to think about it. Now I'm more worried about this than I was about anything else.
The moment that I read how the players reacted, it's the creeping feeling in my stomach. I'm like, oh, we're gonna lose people just because of this, no other reason. And there's some now the TJ thing. I think the way the contract is done, McCarthy is kind of handcuffed with that one. So unless there's another team that's willing to take the bulk of TJ's money on and give us a king's ransom for it, we're not going to touch it. But there's going to be some real decisions made. I mean, I can genuinely see it any day now. Cam saying, "Okay, that's it," but the only reason that these players are going to come back when they're thinking about leaving is saying, you know what, maybe now, maybe with this new thing, maybe I'll get the playoff win now. Maybe there has to be something, but there's going to be genuine turnover. Nick Herbig, I'm worried about. I see a link, like you're correct. I see links to that. And if it comes down to that, Steelers have to do everything they can to keep Herbig. They really do. Out of those three, the youth is in Highsmith and Herbig. Give up talking about this, but yeah, there's no easy answers anywhere. There's going to be a lot of names that people are going to be really, really sad about in jerseys that are going to have to be put into different piles now.
I know it's definitely worrisome. Relic said Cam Hayward isn't getting a new contract. I can't imagine he is. I can't imagine he wants to fuck with all this mess. Do you know what I mean? When you're on the cusp of retiring in a year or two. I mean, he had an outstanding season last year. So I certainly think if Tomlin had returned, he could return for another year. But I don't know why he'd want to come back and deal with like all of this, like new defensive, like every position has changed, right? Nothing is the same. I think that could be exciting for Herbig, who's looking for more of an opportunity, even in Alex Highsmith, who, wants to continue to show that he can grow. But for a Cam, I don't know, that it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and guys like Gainwell, who just unexpectedly became this linchpin to how the offense works. I mean, McCarthy could look and he could say, you know what, Gainwell, absolutely, but that's not the offense we're running going forward, because he said it's a West Coast offense, very different from what we've run in the past. So while our defense would be the same, a lot of things McCarthy might not have much choices. Like, listen, you're a great player. We don't like the tight end room. I'm really worried about that. We built a tight end room for Arthur Smith. And now Arthur Smith isn't here, and we have
tight end room you feel that married to other than Darnell Washington. And I mean, that's what I have like an emotional attachment to him. I don't even know that I think he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? Like I've got like an emotional attachment to him. Like I'm sorry, I'm just not crying if Freiermuth isn't coming back at this point. You know what I mean? If there's something better. I guess the one thing I worry about a little bit is that like acquisition is expensive, right? So, it's sort of like if you're moving and you sell all your furniture because it's expensive to hire a moving truck and you're going to buy new stuff when you get there, but then it costs twice as much to require all new things, right? So I worry about that a little bit. Like we let people go and then you have to go get replacements, and what does that look like? Do people really want to come to Pittsburgh? Are they invested in this? Are there like, just like there were Tomlin disciples out there that came to Pittsburgh because they wanted to play for Tomlin? Are there people out there that want to play for McCarthy? Maybe. I don't know. Does he inspire that in people?
That I haven't heard anyone having anything bad to say about them, but across the whole NFL, though, it was always different. There was how people talked about the 31 other coaches and how people talked about Tomlin. It was different. So we're not going to get that again.
No.
But with this one, I think McCarthy coming in and not having an emotional attachment to these players is going to be a positive thing.
Yeah.
Because I think what he can do is he can put the whole roster on one side of a whiteboard.
Herbig and Highsmith, then he needs to trust my emotional attachment to them.
Agreed. I agreed. And I think what they'll do is they'll bring the coaches in as they come in, and on the other side of the whiteboard, he'll have the different slots he needs to fill. And he's just going to do it. And one by one, there's going to be names left on the other side of the board that don't have a place anymore. And that you had a place in the old Steelers teams and not anymore. Now, I will say one name that I didn't expect for me to back, but the way he played last year, I don't think I want to get rid of Connor Hayward right away. Maybe a fullback position, not tight end, but he kind of ingrained himself a little bit to me.
I didn't have an issue with that. Yeah, because he would be cheap, he's reliable, he's healthy. Like I have no issue with him at all.
But if his brother's
the other
not
thing
here.
I think too is that like I don't feel a real emotional attachment to anybody on offense. So I mean, I think that we spent the past couple of years building up this offensive line. I think they got themselves, we talked about this near the end of the season, to the point where they were a consistent, regular functioning offensive line, right? Like not top tier, but no longer like D, C, D, F grades. They were more like, C's and B minuses or whatever. So I think if you built that offensive line and then you just have to, they're steady, they're there, they're consistent. So now you just have to look at building those weapons around them. If you have DK, and then you can pick up whatever other pieces fit into your offensive scheme. Like, I just think that makes a lot of sense. Like whatever's going on with their offense right now bodes well to that kind of wiping the slate clean versus, in other teams you go in, it's very sticky. You've already got this ingrained starting quarterback and, sometimes ingrained offensive weapons, and the running back you don't want to let go of, and all of this. Do you know what I mean? This is, at least from an offensive perspective, it's much easier. Maybe that was attractive to McCarthy, he's almost starting with like a clean slate offense, except for the line, or a big chunk of the line. Relic said, here's his list of players who will not be back: Duggar, Samalu, Holcomb, sad; Killebrew, double sad; Loudermilk, Clark Miller, Peppers, MVS, Austin, Moon, Pierre, Parham, Samuel, McCollum.
No issue with that. That
Huh?
wouldn't be a killer. I
Yeah.
have no issue with that. I mean, some are sad. Killer Brew, sad about that. Holcomb, my goodness gracious,
Killebrew
I'll
would be
miss
the
them.
biggest
But
loss on that list to me.
yep, Sayamalu did his job. He was
Yeah.
supposed to be a transitionary piece, and he was,
Yeah,
and
he
I
was.
appreciate that. So great job. But
He's
yeah, no,
not old.
there's going to be so many new players. There really are, and that's not a bad thing for anybody who's watching this who's really afraid of it. It's not a bad thing. There's the new names we got attached to. You're going to have to let them that go, and some of them are going to be really really hard. I'm getting prepared for the really tough goodbyes to certain players. But it's going to happen, and the exciting part is being able to build it back up, and that part seems to be going well.
Yeah, yeah. Relic said what I think, which is that Holcomb is sad, is excited for him, then he got injured, and then he never really came. It was, I mean, just devastating. And look, it is one of the things that will always be a lifelong Steeler fan. But one of the things that makes me so proud to be a Steelers fan is the way we treat players that go through devastating situations like that. I mean, I don't know. Did you guys read the letter that Shazier put out to Tomlin when he left about like him keeping him? I mean, like, how could you not sob? Like, it was so touching. And then, to take care of Holcomb in a similar fashion, it makes me really proud to be a fan. All right, what else, Zac? Anything else we're forgetting about this new situation? We're processing. I think we're calmer than we were when it was initially announced. Maybe we've
Definitely.
been embracing the suck a little bit, or the change that's coming. We're ready for it.
We are. The biggest thing here is it's kind of a similar to the Rodgers situation. I'm not embracing Mike McCarthy as the coach.
Right.
I'm embracing the staff that is being assembled. And that's all I wanted. I wanted someone so I didn't have to always just say, oh, this is on Mike McCarthy. I can blame individual coordinators, which I like. Assigning that's important. So
yeah,
there's some positives I'm seeing, but a lot of it's still in flux. We don't know a lot. We could feel doubly as positive in a week, or we could suddenly feel really negative at everything. It's going to be a very interesting off season.
I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit of both, right? Like, I think there's going to get things that get said or implied or we see that make us think like, oh man, this is not going to be good. And then there's going to be things that, make us feel like, okay, this is a positive change. All right. Relic brings up one more thing before we go. This is interesting. What do you think about bringing Zach Banner back? Love that dude. I love him too. I really, really do. I think he's just a really cool dude. He's a really good guy. He's fun to talk to. I like him a lot. I was really rooting for him when he first left. I was real involved in that like campaign to bring him back, and it just kind of never happened. I don't know if he's ready to is he physically in shape to come back? Is he stayed football ready? I don't know. I wouldn't have an issue with giving him a chance at camp or something. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, those kind of players like we saw this year from Spencer Andersons and Dylan Cooks, when we need those depth pieces to come in, they are sometimes the most important parts of the team. And yeah, if I like comeback stories too, and the Steelers are a good place to have that. So like you said, if he kept himself in football shape, coming back.
Yeah, Relic says he thinks he's playing in Canada, and he says he's ready. I'd love to see him come back. I talked to him about it, that year after he left a couple of times. Do you know what I mean? About how I hoped he was continuing to try to get back in there. I don't know why we wouldn't give him another chance, because to me, when he was there, he was Bentley shush. He was trustworthy. He was consistent. He was good.
Absolutely. So it's any piece, whether it's starting or not, that can help the team as a whole right now, that's all I'm going to look for. So we're going to have less stars and more important integral pieces this year than ever, I feel.
There's nothing like when you're here alone and both the dogs start barking at out at the office window. So you're like, and it's dark and you're like, what is going on? And I have my mom's dog here now, and she is like the most twitchy, neurotic dog. She's a herding dog by nature.
Oh,
So
no.
she sits in front. We have a glass front door. She sits in front of the front door like, 20 out of 24 hours a day staring and waiting for somebody to walk past or drive past so she can bark at them. So it never ends. Apologies.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Do us a favor, like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a follow on social media. We will be back next Tuesday, hopefully back on a regular schedule. My mom will cooperate this week, and I'll be able to be on a Tuesday night. We'll be back next Tuesday to talk about whatever crops up between now and then, because it will surely be something. Have a good night, everyone.
LeeAnn and Zac would like to thank you for tuning in to the Steelers City Huddle podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a thing.